almost more valuable is the thrilling free fall of when it goes terribly, and it just goes terribly, and then you sort of realize, well, we didn't die. Let's just start again. I grew up in a house where we watched a lot of comedy, and we would then go around and imitate it. My brother and I would, well, he would reenact Saturday Night Live skits. I was too little to be watching it, but I would learn, a samurai deli or whatever secondhand through him, and then act it out. And we used to watch a lot of Monty Python when I was a really little kid. So I can't remember the first time. But it was always permeated the environment that everybody in our house was really into comedy. Carol Burnett show was also a big deal in my house. I was allowed to watch it. There was this, I'm born in 1970, so I don't know if I was watching it first run or not, but there was a night of TV that was Mary Tyler Moore into Bob Newhart into Carol Burnett, and that was sacred night. And if that was that, that would be the thing that if I ever did get in trouble, that would be what was withheld from me. Like, you're not going to be able to watch Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, Carol Burnett. I was like, what? I think that only happened maybe once that I was actually did. I don't know what I did. But no, that show was big deal. Yeah. I just thought it was really funny. I mean, I remember all those shows really well. All the Mama's family sketches before they spun it off. I've read somewhere that Carol Burnett pointed out that there are no jokes in those sketches. It is all just this brittle behavior, and all the laughs come from the kind of tension and the painfulness of the way they treat each other, which is just really good writing, I think. She was the best, is the best. I think she was very funny. I just felt, for me as a viewer, especially watching it so many years later, that, watching it in the 70s, 80s, when it had been made in the 50s, I always liked the storylines that weren't about her being afraid of what Ricky was going to do, because I couldn't really, like, that time had changed. I was like, women are afraid of their husbands, that's a thing. But things like the Candy Factory and Vitamita, Vegemin, like, those are just precise, excellent, just fantastic pieces of comedy, yeah. I was a huge fan of Joan's. Yeah, I had all her her comedy albums on cassette. That's when it was. I would listen to them to her on my Walkman. No, I thought she was really funny, and she was an excellent late night host. Yeah, I think she was a very funny woman, and I think her kind of approach to jokes, which seems to me oftentimes to be saying the thing that people were thinking and not saying, was at the time, was kind of thrilling and innovative, I was an improviser in Chicago at a place called the Improv Olympic with Amy Poehler and a bunch of other people, and then also at the Second City in Chicago. And it really is a cult in Chicago. The life of the improviser there's so much improv comedy in that city. You can really just find hundreds of people who all they want to do is improvise. All you do is, you work your day job, you come, you take a couple classes a week, you get up anywhere you can. It's just a way of life in that city, and it's a great way to spend your 20s. It's just really fun, and it opens people up creatively. It makes you a better risk taker in general. It's just, everyone should be forced to do it. Yeah, it's because it is sort of risky. The highs are high and the lows are low, and I think the high feeling of when something actually goes well is great, but almost more valuable is the thrilling free fall of when it goes terribly, and it just goes terribly, and then you sort of realize, well, we didn't die. Let's just start again. That is, I think, the thing that's the best for young performers to experience. When I was learning at Second City, I think that's the biggest thing you can teach someone is to play real characters that they know, or to portray the world as they see it and not the way they think the audience expects it. Amy Poehler and I used to tour together for the Second City, and we would do these old sketches that were handed to us that a lot of times were just the wife or the girlfriend, the waitress, and you come and be like, honey, well, what's this? And I'm like, well, I would never do that, so let's make up new ones. The women in the cast, in the 9 years that I was there, they were all just very, very strong. It started with Molly and Anna and Sherry, and then it built, I think, with Amy and Rachel and Maya, and then Kristen. You know, they just really, there was a generational shift, and they didn't feel like they were in any way second-class citizens to be there. They were getting more things on a lot of times than the men. And so I think, it was a change there, and I definitely feel like it was because of the women in the cast. Because I think the producers, you know, they just want to put whatever works at that table read, they'll put it on. And they were just kind of winning the table read. Do I still worry, like, okay, so how will I be employed in my 50s and 60s and 70s? I do think there is still a precipice there that hopefully people in my generation of this will become producers, find ways to get themselves into situations where they're not beholden to someone else to even get a writing job. I mean, I think there's an age problem that still exists for women more than men. When you're a writer at SNL, you write your little sketch and then you bring it to the rewrite table, and then the head writer would kind of facilitate people pitching extra jokes for your sketch or saying, well, I don't think that worked, maybe you should take that out. And it was incredibly nerve-wracking because you had some autonomy, but not complete autonomy. And sometimes the head writer would say, like, yeah, you really should cut that. And that you'd be just terrified, like you feel really, you know, just nervous until your turn was over. I think it is. With our show, a lot of work goes into it. I mean, there's a lot of work in that writer's room to think about those jokes and those bits and that story. I think of it as when I played baseball as a kid, there's a lot of talk about, you know, when you're up in the outfield, where I always was, and there's a lot of talk about relaxed readiness. And so I think there's a lot of preparation, and then you want to be in a state of relaxed readiness so that if something spontaneous does happen, you're there and you're capable of seizing that moment. But I think you get there with a lot of prep work. Amy Poehler and I were very much in agreement at that time because she was playing Hillary Clinton during that season, and I was ended up playing Sarah Palin, and we wanted to be there, and we were very happy to be there and happy to do comedy about it, but we wanted to make sure that the nature of the sketches we did wasn't that there was some kind of fake rivalry where they hated each other or that they, you know, a tricky thing at Saturday Night Live is if you play a political figure like that, any staff writer can write for that character, and you might be handed something that you don't feel comfortable with, which was part of my hesitation about agreeing to do it. The political characters are kind of public domain there, and so we ended up doing almost all those sketches were written by Seth Meyers with our input. And then a few other people piled on as it went. But yeah, we really wanted to make sure that it wasn't jokes about them hating each other, or that they, you know, and just that we felt that it was portraying the world as we saw it, like we talked about, like you talked about with the Joan thing. I love Betty. We got to do a week at SNL with Betty. All of us, all the women of SNL got to do that Mother's Day show with her, and it was inspiring just to see, one, that her timing just rock solid still, her, you know, ability to work. She would go home every night and to the hotel and say, how was your night last night, Betty? She's like, oh, good. I went back to the hotel. I had a vodka and a cold hot dog. I'm like, that's the secret, I guess. 30 Rock has sort of a hybrid tone to it. I came from a sketch comedy background, and my writing partner in all this, Robert Carlock, we were at Saturday Night Live together, and he's a Harvard Lampoon person, I'm a Second City person, and so all those things together come to make the tone of the show. And so I think we have, hopefully, when things are working, we have a kind of grounded emotional core to the show that, you know, you care about these people and their relationships, and then around that there's this there's a pretty elastic universe of silliness, of anything can kind of happen. It's almost like we took the parameters of a sketch world and put it around the chewy center of a normal half-hour comedy. We do at least try to sometimes point to interesting topics. I don't feel like we can quite serve up answers, and I think that is generationally the shows I grew up with sometimes were perhaps a little too heavy-handed in their handing you the answer, but the sort of 70s, a very special Blossom, a very special Edith Bunker gets raped. There was a weird time there where TV comedy became prescriptive in a way, and so we don't quite go that far. But I do think, there are times when I at least like to kind of at least poke at issues of race or class or gender, But we've helped nothing, and we've solved nothing. I sort of felt that it was an interesting discussion to have, and from my point of view, this episode where Liz is hiring a younger comedy writer and is then kind of put off by how kind of hypersexual she is in her comedy. Ultimately, I felt that the ultimate sort of point of that episode was Liz decides, you know what? I was wrong to try to reshape you. You do your thing, I will do my thing, which that was what I believed to be the point of the episode, but I think a lot of people saw other points and didn't necessarily think that that's what we were trying to say. Well, it's mostly this kind of single camera approach is just what's in fashion right now. I think you can make a very good comedy in front of an audience. Some people I feel think there's a stigma to it, that it's sort of too easy. But you look at shows like Cheers and well, only Cheers, I guess. And that was just an excellent show that was in that old multi-camera format. I mean, it is nice to have an audience sometimes. It's nice to be able to go back to Saturday Night Live sometimes, or we did one live episode, hopefully do another one sometime before our demise. That is fun to remind yourself that jokes can be enjoyed by a live audience. Gosh, what makes me laugh on our show? Lots of things. I mean, Jane Krakowski really makes me laugh. I mean, performance, going into something, and I know where the jokes are, and when a joke's well executed, that'll make me laugh, but also when there's a little nuance of performance that is sort of an extra gift from the actor. It's just a small facial thing or a rhythmic thing. That is just an unforeseen gift. Because you go in, mostly as a writer, you go into it hoping okay, nobody screw up my jokes. And then when someone actually is able to give you something beyond that. Well, I feel like television for women has always been a better place. I think if you look at Lucy, I mean, she was an EP of that show. I don't know, I wasn't alive. I don't know who they called first, her or Desi Arnaz, but I mean, that was her show, and Mary Tyler Moore is MTM. I feel like my guess is it's a lot better for women in television than in movies. I think movie, and maybe just because the picture is smaller, so they leave you alone about your face. But I think it's harder in movies. This is a dream job. It's a time-consuming job, and it can be a stressful job, but I don't think there's anyone here who isn't aware that this is a little special moment in time that we're getting to make this show the way we want it and have it be on TV.